All right, we're coming back to order. The clerk will read the caption to a group of privilege resolutions.
Honoring the life and memory of Haran Shahid Wakil. Honoring the life and memory of Shelby C. Peoples, Jr. Congratulating the Carrollton High School Trojan Competition cheerleading team for winning the 2021 Cheerleading State Championship. Recognizing, commending Army Colonel Robert Shane Kimbrough upon his induction into the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. Recognizing, commending Chief Warrant Officer Robert E. Pennington upon his induction into the Georgia Military Hall of Fame. Recognizing and commending Jim Martin. Recognizing and congratulating Jerry W. Cooper upon the grand occasion of his retirement. Recognizing and commending Jerry Gonzalez. Recognizing and commending Citizen Impact USA. Recognizing and commending Army Lieutenant Colonel John William Phillips upon his induction to the Georgia Military Veterans Hall of Fame. Recognizing and commending Adina Nickel. Congratulating the Fannin County High School wrestling team for winning the 2021 GHSA Wrestling State Tournament. Recognizing and congratulating Dr. Robert Bond upon the grand occasion of his retirement. Recognizing and commending America Gruner. Recognizing and commending Gigi Pedraza. Commending the House interns for the 2021 regular session. Congratulating and commending Yvette Parrish for receiving the 2021 Nikki T. Randall Service Leader Award. Commending Mary Ellen Sheffield for her advocacy in systematic racism, environmental justice, community building, and equity as a grassroots leader in her community. Recognizing and commending Justin Freeman. Recognizing and commending Jalila Scales. Recognizing and commending Jacoby Swanson. Commending Janet Johnson Davis for her advocacy and support of Georgia citizens impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Commending the Lupus Foundation of America and recognizing Thursday, March 11, 2021 as Lupus Advocacy Day at the State Capitol. Recognizing and commending Zakira Thomas. Recognizing and commending Bishop Seabrook. Acknowledging the connection between the human papillovirus and cancer and the protection offered to prevent most HPV-related cancers. Congratulating and commending Vicki Hogue for receiving the 2021 Yellow Rose Nikki T. Randall Service Leader Award. Recognizing and commending Haji Gooms Rouse. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privilege resolutions.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the privilege resolutions? Chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. The clerk will read. We're going back to the rules calendar, the one we were on this morning. I understand there's another one coming down the road. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 410.
House Bill 410 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 2 of Chapter 12 of Title 16 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to bingo, so as to transfer regulatory authority over bingo from the Director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to the Secretary of State. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Eddie Lumsden to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I bring to you House Bill 410. This is a department bill that comes at the request of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. The bill does not change anything in the law. It simply moves the responsibility for regulating bingo from the GBI to the Secretary of State's office. The GBI, as you well know, is a law enforcement organization tasked with criminal investigations and prosecutions as their primary mission. The Secretary of State's role is broad and is largely regulatory. By transferring this responsibility, it will free up valuable investigative manpower for the GBI. The highly trained investigative manpower of the GBI is better utilized investigating murders, drugs, and human trafficking than regulating bingo. Mr. Speaker, that is the bill. I'll be glad to answer any questions. If not, I'll yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
You do not have any questions.
I yield the will. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 410. The ayes are 151, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 435.
House Bill 435 by Representative Anderson of the 10th to be entitled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 91 of Title 36, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to contracting and bidding requirements for public works. This bill having referred to the Committee on Government Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Anderson to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I'm here today to present House Bill 435. House Bill 435 adds a paragraph to the Georgia Local Government Public Works Construction Law that will allow an exemption for public works projects that are contracted through the competitively procured state convenience contracts or through cooperative purchasing organizations. That's the extent of the bill. And with that, I'll answer any questions if possible, if necessary, or yield the will.
You have a couple of questions if you yield the will or yield for them.
I will, yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Dreyer in the gallery to your left for a question. He waves. Chair recognizes Representative Reeves to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
This is your first bill, right?
No, sir.
Okay, great. It didn't matter to me. You're a part of the Georgia Tech caucus, aren't you?
I am.
Isn't it true that the Georgia Tech caucus grew substantially in the General Assembly this year?
I believe that's the case.
And isn't it true that if we continue this trajectory for 7.3 more years, we'll actually have the majority of this body?
I believe the gentleman knows what he speaks.
And most importantly, isn't it true that Georgia Tech beat Duke last night in basketball and likely punched our ticket to the big dance?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't have any questions about your bill.
Thank you.
You know, I put up with about all that today. I'm going to have, Representative Reeves. You have one more question if you care to yield. It's up to you.
One more, yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative McLean for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In
Does
the
the gentleman
gallery.
yield?
I do.
This bill 435, is it a real simple bill?
I would consider it fairly simple, yes, sir.
Further, do you yield further?
I do.
My only concerns with 435, does it give anybody a leg up? Because we're talking about prison labor and we're talking about inmate labor. Are we talking about bringing people back into the system?
Thank you for the question, and honestly, the bill has nothing to do with inmate labor or prison labor in any shape, form, or fashion. The code section that it falls under has the title that includes inmate labor, but this bill has nothing to do with inmate labor.
The gentleman further yield, because
Yes, sir.
the first question was, does this just give a company that's already vetted the picking winners and losers?
I don't think it does. It does provide local governments an option to shorten the time in disaster recovery or for certain economic development situations, but thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I yield the will.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Laricchia rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true, Mr. Speaker, that under some of these convenience contracts, you have to be careful that they don't extend those to include some work that could be bid on by other contractors and just continuing to use one contractor over the other?
I'm sure if the gentleman states that, he believes that to be true. What purpose does Chairman Setzler rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Forgive me, I was off the floor. I just realized what we're voting on. Pursuant to Rule 133, I'd like to be recused from this vote.
Gentleman has that right, and the journal will so reflect. Have all members now voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of the House Bill 435, the ayes are 80, the nays are 86. This bill, having failed to receive the requisite constitutional majority, therefore is lost. What purpose does Representative Anderson rise? He's on. Chairman F.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to serve notice for reconsideration at the next legislative day.
Gentleman has that right. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 470.
House Bill 470 by Representative Washburn of the 141st be titled Act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to regulation of specialized land transactions so as to provide that no plans are required when units are not designated by physical structures. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Washburn to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I rise to present House Bill 470, which is amends the condominium law in Georgia. It adds this language: except for a unit that is an individual residential dwelling intended for single-family occupancy. Nothing in this code section shall require plans for a unit when the boundaries of the unit are not designated by walls, floors, ceilings, or other physical structures, provided that the boundaries of the unit are depicted on a plat of survey prepared in accordance with subsection A of this code section. Nothing in this code section shall require a separate plat of survey for a subcondominium. This change is necessary because some of our large multi-purpose condominium developers, in their process of trying to close construction lending, have hit a snag because this language needed to be added. It does not deal with residential condominiums, but in these big multi-purpose condominium developments, there can be retail or office or other uses that are condominiums as well. And this just says that if there's no structure there to start with, there will be built, of course, that these floor plans are not required. It's a good bill because it helps generate real estate development, which generates jobs, which generates revenue. And so I urge your favorable consideration of it. Mr. Speaker, I'll yield for any questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I respectfully request your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 470. The ayes are 165, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, therefore is passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 371.
House Bill 371 by Representative Gunner of the 8th and others to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 24-1360, the Fiscal Code of Georgia, annotated relating to order requiring prisoners' delivery to serve as witness or criminal defendant generally, expenses, and prisoner under death sentence as witness, so as to provide that certain proceedings may be conducted by video conference. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Gunter to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is another of the video conference bills. In this one, a judge of any class of court can conduct hearings by video conference or teleconference as long as they comply with the rules of that court that regard that. This applies in both civil and criminal cases. In the criminal cases, if the hearing involves the guilt or innocence of the accused, then it has to be an in-person hearing. It can't be done by video conference. That's basically what the bill does. I'll take any questions if you have any.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 371. The ayes are 157, the nays are 9. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 511.
House Bill 511 by Representative Reeves, the 34th, being entitled an act to amend titles 12, 19, 27, 28, 31, 40, 45, 48, and 49 of the Official Code of Georgia, annotated, relating to conservation and natural resources, domestic relations, game and fish, General Assembly, health, motor vehicles, and traffic. This bill having referred to the Committee on Appropriations, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Reeves to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is House Bill 511, and earlier today we referenced and talked about our friend, former colleague that we all miss greatly, Representative Jay Powell. And frankly, in the 7 years that I've been here, it's hard to imagine another representative that has a legacy like he has, and it was a real honor and privilege for me to be able to carry House Bill 511, because it is indeed part of Chairman Powell's legacy. He worked for years on the idea of wanting to have a constitutional amendment proposed, which we did, and almost 82% of Georgians voted in favor of this past November, that requires that when this body dedicates a fee to a certain activity, to a certain purpose, that we appropriate it appropriately. That right now our appropriations process is doing this precisely, but there have been times where it hasn't been done that way, and we have no idea who's going to be here in the future. But the citizens of Georgia spoke, and 82% said that we need to be dedicating these fees to the purpose that we set out when we require these fees. And so what this bill does is it creates 9 different trust funds, and that these trust funds will hold the money that these dedicated fees are already being collected for. And then the legislation sets out what the money is to be used for, who is the trustee of those trust funds, and how they're to use it. And it also, the constitutional amendment and the constitutional provisions contain provisions that if we were to have an economic crisis or a financial crisis in the state of Georgia and we would need to change this, then those safeguards are built in to the Constitution with what has been passed. Essentially, it would be no more than 1% of our budget, so it's approximately $230 to $250 million that where we have dedicated, where we're collecting from dedicated fees. That money would go to its exact intended purpose. I'll be happy to stand for any questions, Mr. Speaker.
You have questions if you care to yield.
Sure.
Chair recognizes the Minority Leader of the House, Leader Beverly, to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
I'd like to bring your attention just for a point of clarity, line 28, where it says such funds shall not lapse to the general fund. Does this imply that all 10 of these funds, that not any money will lapse into the general fund, it will go to the space that it was anticipated to go?
In line 28 is, so section 1 of the bill is actually, it is a cleanup having to do with the Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund. It was put in here for purposes of cleanup. It actually, section 1 is the section that is not related to the constitutional amendment provisions. The rest of the bill is, but section 1 is not. But to answer your question, there are certain, the amendment requires that we cannot dedicate more than 1%, and that's probably a good thing because we need the ability to have flexibility. This kind of balances the concept of having the flexibility to use our appropriations where we need them versus living up to our word and actually appropriating to the things that we said. This is why we're collecting these fees, so we're going to do it. It strikes that appropriate balance. There are some concepts where, in order to be able to make it fit under, there were 9 trust funds are created. In order to make it fit under the 1%, some of those funds, and I can't recall off the top of my head, I don't believe that every penny collected from those funds is going, but there is exact science. This was a very long effort that involved both the OPB, also House budget and Senate budget, all worked together in creating the balance here. But to answer your question, I don't believe that every penny of every fund goes into these trust funds, but it's set up that way because in order to get under the 1%, there had to be some limitations.
And then, gentlemen, further
Sure.
yield. The interest, so this money is going to accrue in a fund.
Mm-hmm.
Does this fund contemplate that the interest would be used for the funds in which it was directed? Is that correct?
Yes,
as
and
well?
all of the legislation, all of the different sections talk specifically about what the funds must be used for, who has the discretion to use that. It's usually the agency head or director or commissioner of whatever agency that the bill, like for example, the Children's Trust Fund, that would fall under DFAC's director would have that discretion in deciding to use the money. But then there's a list of things that the money can be used for. But that person who would be designated as the trustee is the one that's tasked with that, and they're limited to what's in the law.
Okay, thank you.
Do you further yield?
I do.
Chair recognizes Representative Anulowicz to your left for a question.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Thank you. This is actually going to echo a question that I asked in committee. But to clarify, the Transportation Trust Fund and the Georgia Transit Trust Funds, these do not change how those funds are collected, change how they're spent. This simply would put them in a designated space.
That's exactly right. And those funds, like the other ones, they're being used for their proper purpose, but this puts it into law and will require that from here on out. So
Thank you.
I'll yield for one more, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Maynor up in the gallery for a question.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question just for clarity. Does this bill relate to the funds for tires and their?
Yes.
It does?
Yes, there's a fee when we buy tires. We pay, the state requires that we pay a fee with those tires, and that fee helps assist with the concept of recycling and disposing of the rubber from old tires. And that, while today, right now, we are appropriating that money correctly, that is one of the issues that wasn't, that money was being diverted at one point in time to the general fund, and this would require that would not be the case again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I will yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chair recognizes the Dean of the House, Dean Smyrie, to speak to the bill.
Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, I just wanted to come and speak on behalf of House Bill 511. And as I told the author of the bill, I was really excited about this because I just did a little bit of history lesson and thought about House Bill 170 in 2015 when we created the Transportation Act. And after that, talking with you, Mr. Speaker, and other leaders of this House, we created the Transit Fund. And I just wanted to come and say that during the pandemic, all of our transit systems around the state continue to take our first responders and people to work every single day. And to me, being able to put this money now that is directed from the excise fee that we put in at 50 cents for higher transportation, and now to have this codified, and I know this is something that the late Representative Powell had wanted to see us do, but at the same time, I want to say that we had never provided funding for transit systems. And to me, this is a historical and a move in the right direction that all of our transit systems around the state now is getting attention from the members of this General Assembly. And to me, that speaks volumes, because we came back and we did House Bill 930, which created the ATL and transit system. So I think this is a good way to codify it, a good way to put it in statutory law, and I'm just thrilled that Section 14 designate itself to the Transportation Act and transportation funds that will be explicitly directed to transit system and to transit transportation in the state of Georgia. So that, to me, that is a bold step, and because we had over the years never provided funding from MARTA all the way down to my system in Columbus Metro, and to all of your systems around the state, that all of y'all who have transit. And to me, this is a major step in giving them direct fund from the state, and the state is participating in the process of providing transit throughout the state of Georgia. So I did want to come and look forward to voting in favor of House Bill 511.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 511. The ayes are 168, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 477.
House Bill 477 by Representative Watson of the 172nd, to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 48729.12 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to tax credit for qualified donation of real property, carryover of credit, appraisals, and transfers of credit. This bill having referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Watson to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of this House, basically what this bill is dealing with the Georgia Conservation Tax Credit Program. We passed this bill back in 2014. We're just renewing the sunset on this piece of legislation so that we can continue to conserve land across our state. We've conserved over 50,000 acres in the last 6 years, and as our state continues to grow, we need to make sure that we protect the quality of life for our citizens, and that's part of what this bill does. And I would appreciate your support, and I'd be glad to take any questions if there are any, Mr. Speaker.
You have a question if you care to yield.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative McLaurin in the gallery to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield for a question?
Yes, sir.
Am I right to understand that this tax credit is related to the donation of property for conservation uses?
That is correct.
Okay. Would the gentleman yield for one final question?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if the state has any sort of audit in place regarding the legitimacy of these claimed credits? I know we've had discussions over the last couple of years about looking at these tax credit programs. I'm just curious if you know if we have a way of reviewing those.
Yes, sir. It is a very intense, very vetted program. Once the Department of Natural Resources goes through and vets it, they actually have to submit a report to the Natural Resources Committee, House Ways and Means, House and Senate Ways and Means Committee at the end of every year. And also, it's got, as you can see, it actually has a 30 million cap, and we average around 3 million per year. So it's a very difficult program and a lot of rules that go with it. So it's very, very strict.
Thanks for your work.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the will and appreciate your support.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 477. The ayes are 165, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. House Bill 44 will be postponed to the next legislative day, and House Bill 302 will be postponed to the next legislative day. We're going on now to the Supplemental Rules calendar. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 94.
House Bill 94 by Representative Rich, and the 97th to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 16 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to theft so as to provide for the crime of theft by possession of stolen mail. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Chairman Rich to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you House...
Lady will suspend just a moment. Do all members not have the supplemental calendar? That's right. All right. Lady, you want to be at ease? We're going to have to send everybody outside to the back table to get a copy of the supplemental calendar, As you all now know, we do not have delivery to your desk. So we'll take a moment, and then I'll recognize Chairman Rich to present the bill. Okay, does everyone now have a supplemental rules calendar? You've had adequate time to get it, so we're going to move forward. So the chair will recognize again. The clerk had read the caption. Will recognize Chairman Rich to present the bill. This House will come to order. The House will come to order. The lady may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I bring to you today House Bill 94. This is a bill that was requested by our U.S. Postal Inspector. This bill will provide for the creation of a crime called possession of stolen mail, and this will allow local prosecutors to charge anyone who is found in possession of 10 or more pieces of mail addressed to 3 or more individuals. This is meant to address the development and proliferation of the crime rings that have sprung up around the mail theft. The second portion of this bill is known as the porch piracy bill, and this portion provides for the creation of the crime of porch piracy, which allows a local prosecutor to charge an individual who steals a package from the threshold or near the doorway of someone's home. And this is so that the local authorities will be able to dedicate the resources necessary to prosecute these crimes regardless of the value, because some people obtain, a lot of people now, more even in the last year, are having a lot of packages delivered to their homes, and this will allow the local authorities to address it. And I will yield for any questions.
You have some questions. Well, let's see here. Chair recognizes the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, Chairman England, to your right.
Does the gentlelady yield?
Yes, I do.
Well, I just want to tell you thank you. This is something that I know my law enforcement community back home has been having a lot of issues with. And is it not true that as you mentioned there at the end of your presentation, that we have seen a lot more of the delivery type retail face over the last year and a half with the COVID environment? Is it not true?
Yes, that is true.
And is it not further true that many people today rely on life essential medications being delivered in packages, and that we're having a rash of instances around the state of those medications being stolen from someone in Sport Step, and our law enforcement, local law enforcement's hands are tied, that they do not have the proper tools that they need in place in the statute in order to prosecute these crimes?
Yes, that is true, and that is exactly what the U.S. Postal Inspector told me, is that one of the issues is our elderly who are relying upon life-saving medications, and these items are being stolen, and sometimes they're not worth the $1,500 that's necessary to charge them with the felony.
Thank you for this bill.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to your right for a question. He waves. Chair recognizes Representative Camp in the gallery to your right for a question. I think they're going to help you with your mic. You need to hit the...
Can you get me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Chairman Rich, is it not true with so many people working remotely at this point in time that valuable information that can be shipped to their homes for them to complete their jobs, and without a bill such as this where $1,500 is the price point, it's very challenging for any business to prove that the lack of information given or sent to their employee was worth $1,500 in monetary value. Does this bill not address this issue?
Yes, it does. And again, that was a specific example that the postal inspector gave to me, is that oftentimes the benefits checks and the personal and private identification is not worth more than the paper it's written on, and therefore cannot be charged as appropriately as a felony as it should be. Yes, that's exactly right. Thank you, Representative Camp.
Chair recognizes Representative Thomas to your left for a question.
Does the gentlelady yield?
Yes.
First of all, I want to say, is it not true that we all care about our packages and our constituents' packages?
I would think that is true, yes.
Thank you. But is it not further true that this would make it a felony, irrespectively of the dollar amount of that package? It would still be a felony.
Yes, that is exactly right. For the same reason that it is a felony for someone to actually cross over into the threshold of someone's home, even if they steal nothing, it will now be a felony to go up to the threshold to remove a package. And the rationale behind that is because it is a different kind of criminal who is brazen enough to go up to the threshold of someone's home. There is much more likelihood for physical violence and harm, and that's exactly what the Prosecuting Attorney's Council informed me when they told me that they support this bill.
Thank you.
Do you continue to yield?
No, Mr. Speaker, I will yield the well.
Lady has yielded the well. We have other members that wish to be heard on the bill, and the chair recognizes Representative Bodie to speak to, Representative McLaurin to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good to see everybody again. This bill is about the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony. That's what it's about. We use words like tools, we use words like resources to refer in the abstract to what police and prosecutors use to try to respond to crime. But ultimately, if I had to guess, I don't think that everybody in this chamber is thinking about increasing the penalty for a crime because we just want to feel better when those people are hit harder. It's not about how we feel. Retribution is definitely something victims care about, but in this chamber, I don't think we're just trying to get, the joy or whatever it might be out of hitting somebody harder. No, the reason that we increase penalties if we're doing it, in theory, is because we want to deter crime from happening. It's a deterrence rationale, right? We think that if we make something into a felony, that's going to, hit the Reddit subreddit thread or whatever where people organize their package thefts, and people say, well, you know what, now that it's a felony and it's not just multiple misdemeanors, I'm not going to do this thing I was going to do. And maybe that's the case. That might be right. We don't have expert political scientists who can answer this question for us because it's really hard to figure out, quite frankly. But what I do know is that Governor Deal exercised a great deal of courage and leadership within the last decade to tell the story to Georgians that ended up being true, that if we can relax even this much on our knee-jerk responses to crime, which again are to, do not pass go, do not collect $200, go straight to jail. If we can relax that instinct even just a little bit, we will reap the rewards in terms of increased economic participation of people whose livelihoods are restored because they're not bound up in a criminal legal system that does not have their prosperity in mind. We can reduce rates of violent crime and property crime while still not over-criminalizing conduct. We show leadership as a state nationally on criminal legal reform, and we were rewarded for it. This bill, specifically the porch piracy crime, takes away certain requirements that this state has deemed necessary as a matter of public policy for imposing the very serious consequence of felony liability. The dollar amount is one of them. But also you can think about this as compared to burglary. It's a felony if you enter somebody's residence, even crack a door, right, in order to commit a crime inside. But the reason for that is because it's the castle, right? Inside the house means something different than outside the house. We've made a policy judgment over the years about these maybe seemingly small but important differences about what human beings do to each other. It is honestly, as a persuasive task goes, probably the hardest thing I could do to stand up here and convince y'all, well, felony is not appropriate for stealing somebody's medication or their checks off the front porch, you know, paper that's not worth $1,500. I get that. That's a tough sell, and frankly, if I'm being realistic, I don't know how many of you I can move today. But what I can do is try to reinforce an idea from the well today that there's so many ways that we can respond to social problems. So many ways. Some of them take longer than others. Investing in healthcare, investing in education, giving people opportunities so that they don't feel like they have to go take a dice roll and grab a random package off a porch and see what's in it, and maybe they can sell it and feed their family that week. Maybe we can give people a way out of having to do this instead of taking away their voting rights, putting them in a GDC facility full of COVID and all the stuff I talked about last time I was here, and hoping that that does something to solve the social ill. I don't have a whole lot more to pitch to you other than that, but I guess what I want to leave you with, and my colleague will speak ably to these issues, is it's one thing to say we need tools, we need resources, we need slightly stronger medicine, the next rung up. It's another thing to walk in the shoes of the people who don't have our comfortable homes to go back to and our elaborate, well-designed porches to sit on, and to get inside the brain of somebody who takes a package they know is probably worth $20 because their survival might actually be on the line. Thank you. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative Bodie to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, originally I was not going to come down to the well to speak on this bill, but I have to. I really just have to, because HB 94 is a tough on crime bill. And we all know what tough on crime bills have gotten us. We had laws in this state, 3 strikes you're out, 2 strikes you're out. We had the crack cocaine disparity laws that sent generations to federal prisons. Now, I would say that I'm not for anyone stealing anyone's items. I've been a victim of crime myself. 2 years ago, someone broke into my car on the way to the Capitol, stole all my stuff in my car. Of course I was mad. I had an aunt that was murdered when I was in law school. Of course I'm still mad and hurt about it. But we cannot try to be tough on crime to get ourselves out of social economic issues that needs to be addressed. So I want to focus on Section 2 of the bill, and I want to be very succinct and go into lines 42. Read line 42. A person who violates this code section shall be guilty of a felony, and upon conviction thereof shall be punished by imprisonment no less than 1 year, no more than 5 years. So let's talk about that a little bit. I would say to you all in this noble chamber that we already got statutes on the book to deal with theft by taking. We already have trespass crimes. And I want to talk to you a little bit today about theft by taking statute 16-6-2 subsection C. A person convicted of violation of code section 16.8.2 through 16.8.9 shall be punished as for a misdemeanor, except for if the property was subject of the theft of at least $1,500.01 in value, but less than $5,000 in value. but imprisonment for not less than 1 year, no more than 5 years. And in the discretion of the trial court judge as for a misdemeanor. So I want to just hold right there, misdemeanor. So the theft by taking statute that this General Assembly passed under then Governor Nathan Deal, the champion, Republican champion of criminal justice reform, made the statute go from $500 in value up to $1,500 in value, and also gave the trial judge the discretion for a misdemeanor. Well, I'm going to tell you, HB 94 doesn't do that. So if your 17-year-old son or daughter or constituent decides to have a prank and do something really kind of dumb for a 17-year-old, which is, the age of majority in the state of Georgia for going to adult prisons, he's looking or she's looking at 1 to 5 for possibly stealing a package of vitamins from Amazon that's valued at $19.99. 1 to 5 in a penal institution under the Department of Corrections in the state of Georgia. Now, do we really want to make this a new crime? Do we want to take discretion away from our judges? Do we want to duplicate laws already on the books? Because if you get a felon in the state of Georgia, we talked about voting rights a lot this week. Your right to vote is gone. Your right to run for public office is gone. Your right to sit on a jury is gone. Your right to get any type of good job is gone. Well, Mr. Speaker, I ask everyone in this noble chamber to vote no to this tough on crime bill that is not needed, because we already have laws to address theft by taking in the state of Georgia. With that, I yield the word, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, we have members that wish now to speak in favor of the measure. And the chair recognizes the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Chairman F. Strachan, to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, we have a very important bill to us before us here today, and I know that because over a year ago, when I was serving as chairman of the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee, I got a call. The call was from the postal inspector out of Atlanta who said there was a very serious issue that we had in this state, and that was that mail and the theft of mail was being directly targeted by those who were attempting to perpetrate identity fraud crimes, crimes that go far beyond just the theft of the actual letter. And that it was getting so serious that there were circumstances where the blue postal boxes where we drop our letters in were being knocked over by vehicles so that the mail inside could be stolen. Now, the question I posed at the time was one that I heard in Rules Committee when this bill came up. It's, doesn't the U.S. Attorney, the feds, have the ability to prosecute those cases? And the feds are so overwhelmed by the number of these crimes, they simply don't have the capacity to go after all of these offenses. And that's why they were asking for a state law to criminalize this conduct. That's the reason that the first part of this bill is in place. And I think that when you consider that the theft itself is not just of the letter, that it has such serious implications, it warrants the type of penalty that's imposed in this bill. You know, we're talking about multiple pieces of mail addressed to multiple different people in order to reach that threshold. And when you recognize that, it appears very consistent that we would have authorization for a sentence that's according to the harm done. All right, now let's talk about the second half of the bill. And I don't know about some of y'all, but These days, as you look around at people's houses, maybe you're out going door to door in your communities across the state, you see the number of packages. You almost have to swim through the packages to get to the front door. There are so many Georgians who have changed how they shop fundamentally. They buy their goods online. They go to websites where their packages are delivered instead of going to a physical retail location. That's why we've passed laws to change Georgia code in response to how society has changed, how goods are purchased. And the true reality is that criminal elements recognize that, appreciate that, and perpetrate thefts based upon that they respond based upon these changes in our buying habits. Now, what that means is we have to update criminal laws as well. And I'd like to go through some of the specific points that have been raised by those speaking against the bill today to just address some concerns if there are any out there. First of all, burglary, as was pointed out, burglary allows for a felony offense if a person enters a home with the intent to commit a theft. It doesn't matter what the dollar value is. It's irrelevant. The difference is you're going into someone's home, and as the representative said before, he said just crossing the threshold. What we're talking about here is on your property, on your front porch, somebody entering that area where I would say there's a ripe opportunity for some sort of terrible outcome. Somebody comes to your door, you see maybe there's a child on the porch, maybe there's a child inside the home, you see a stranger on your porch, and that is a potential for a terrible situation. It is not comparable to a simple theft by taking offense. It's not even the same universe. Now, to claim that, well, there is the ability for a reduced, the judge to sentence down, I think also doesn't show deference to what was done in those reforms that were passed to increase the dollar value in theft by taking offenses. Right? I was incredibly proud of our state increasing the dollar threshold for theft by taking offenses. But when somebody takes a box off the porch, they don't know the value of what's inside. They have no idea. And what if you're the resident of the home waiting to get your medicine in that package? What if you need that medication and you don't get it because somebody took it off your porch? You know, these are the kinds of consequences that we really have to think about. This is not ivory tower discussion. This is real world impact to Georgians who are going to lose their medication and their goods off their porch. Now, I think that what's important to discuss here today is what's on this bill and this bill before us. And I've heard a lot of other issues raised, including that 17-year-olds can be charged as adults. Well, as I recall, this House took action on that, thanks to Chairwoman Ballinger's great work to raise the age on that already. Let's not confuse issues here. The issue here is about packages being stolen from the threshold of your home and the terrible consequences that can result from that, and the need that we have due to changing buying habits and our changing society to update our code to reflect that. And having been a former prosecutor, having been a criminal defense attorney, having seen the judicial process from both sides, the kinds of severe consequences that I think are being outlined here today to try to bring opposition to this bill, frankly, I don't think are plausible. I think what's more likely to happen is this law is going to be used when appropriate, when there are people who are targeting homes, that are taking packages on multiple homes, and it's necessary to have a crime that reflects that, not prosecutors and investigators trying to calculate the value of the contents of each package. I'd implore you to vote in favor of this bill today. I know I certainly will. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll yield the will.
Chair recognizes Chairman Setzler to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I'm speaking to members today of perhaps the minority caucus who sort of see both sides of this, who recognize that last March, when the order went out to our citizens to shelter in place for purposes of an unprecedented pandemic, they recognized that staying at home and doing things like they had never done things before was not just essential to themselves, but to their family members, the elderly people that are in their family that they care for, their coworkers, and candidly our entire culture as a whole, that people could be sequestered, those that could stay at home stayed at home every opportunity they had. Now, many people that I know, whether they're elderly and get out with hesitance or people who like to be out 2 or 3 times a day, recognize that in spite of the fact that they may like to go to retail stores, they might even like to go down to the Waffle House and sit with their friends and have a cup of coffee, those times ended precipitously on the 15th of March of last year and the ensuing months, month after month after month. As we saw the reorganization of our economy shift, where retail sales shifted from bricks and mortar stores to people's front doorsteps, the reality of people having things picked out of their yard changed, perhaps forever. Now, as we think about this threshold of things being stolen from one's yard, I would ask members, again, of the Minority Caucus and perhaps even of my own caucus, is there a difference between a premium $150 garden hose being stolen off the side of my house, which is a nuisance to me, which is a crime, which is a misdemeanor under Georgia law, and would continue to be a misdemeanor under HB 94, versus something that's on my front porch, right at the threshold of my door, underneath the overhang of my house, put there as part of the stream of commerce for something that I had ordered for something that I needed. We talk about medicine. We talk about computer peripherals. You know, when you talk about access to computer parts and pieces, computers, printers, all those things were off the shelves in our stores because folks who had gone to their workplace for years and years and years now suddenly needed to be able to work from home. Friends, what we're talking about is not just, as it had been alluded to, some overreach, some rejection of the concept of criminal justice reform. What this is, what HB 94 is a recognition that moving forward, not just a garden hose that's stolen from my yard as a misdemeanor is in play here, but the very stream of commerce itself. Now, this idea of a stream of commerce came to me as an initial skeptic. I remember I was in Judiciary Non-Civil Committee about 6 years ago, and a bill came in that was talking about this stream of commerce and penalizing things that interrupted this stream of commerce more than I didn't understand why. As a skeptic, I said, why is it that we're talking about this stream of commerce and not thinking just about the little guy? Shouldn't regular folks that are being robbed be treated the same way as this idea of a stream of commerce? But as we listen to the debate, I want to share with you what I learned from that process. The victims in a stream of commerce crime like this is not just the victim at the point of delivery. It's the Etsy dealer, the person that sells this, that ships it through FedEx or UPS to this house. They're a victim because their ability to complete a delivery to a customer is interrupted by this theft. The delivery company who's being challenged that, wait a minute, I never got this package. You know, you've got the shipper demonstrates with their shipping label the package has been turned over to the shipping company, and the shipping company deposited it at the door, but the customer says, I never got my package. FedEx, UPS, where's my package? The shipper is victimized by this. When you think about this stream of commerce issue, the entire segments of our economy are shut down by this one pernicious, although if we don't think about it, perhaps seemingly small crime. What HB 94 seeks to address is one act which may seem small to some, which becomes a crime against a producer, a shipper, a customer on the back end, and also the employer who depends on their employee to be able to stay at home, work from home, be productive from home, and receive deliveries at home in the context of this pandemic or other similar circumstances. So I would share with you today, as we wrap this up, this is a much bigger issue than just a simple misdemeanor, friends. This is this crime, when you think about breaking into a house or opening the door of a house to take something, is a 1 to 20 felony. The idea that we're simply moving the threshold to the edge of your front porch from your front door. And in doing that, it's not a 1 to 20 felony. It's simply a 1 to 5. Friends, there's a lot more I could say today that I won't for purposes of time, but I would encourage members of the minority party and my own party as well that recognize the need to shelter in place and to be able to do things different in the stream of commerce. This is not a bill that picks on the little guy. It's a bill that recognizes the circumstances under which we live and responds to it appropriately and in a measured way, and in a way that I believe is worthy of all of our support. With that, I ask for your consideration and your favorable vote on HB 94.
Chair recognizes Representative Reeves to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be brief. This bill for the last 2 years has been in my subcommittee, in the Judiciary Non-Civil Subcommittee that I chair, and I think actually everyone that's spoken thus far is on that subcommittee. And these are the same debate that we had in subcommittee for both years. And if none of you have ever come and watched a Reeves or Setzler Judiciary Non-Civil Subcommittee, we get into spirited debates and really get to the heart of issues and take a collaborative approach. But I just want to talk about a different perspective of this. There's really not a one-size-fits-all reasoning for how and why we develop sentencing ranges, but there are certain sentences and sentencing ranges that have everything to do with the impact that a crime has on a victim. There are, as everyone in this building knows, there are, quote, victimless crimes, and but then there are crimes that there are victims. And the thing about this issue is it gets really close, and as my friend Representative McLaurin talked about the Castle Doctrine, when we talk about our houses, where we live, if there's one place that we should feel safe, if there's one place that we should feel security, if there's one place that we all deserve, I don't care who you are, to be comfortable, it's where you live. It's in your home. And we have a different level of protection for that concept, and the reason why is because it has a different kind of impact on the victim. When I was a prosecutor for 5 years, I'd never been burglarized. But what I learned from burglary cases was the terror that it brought people who had had their home broken into, and that they lost that sense of security and comfort. And I think that this issue is very similar. My wife and I are fortunate we haven't been victims of porch piracy yet, but we have had neighbors in our neighborhood who have. I have a 12-year-old who's at home alone when he gets home from school for an hour or so every day. And if somebody were to steal something from our house, then I would tell you it would affect my comfort in having my 12-year-old at home alone, because you're encroaching on something that is sanctimonious to me. And I think that in light of that, this sentencing proposal is proportionate and appropriate, and I'm very sensitive to the idea of, we have juveniles and teenagers that make mistakes and do things, and we've invested a lot in this room in creating diversion programs and accountability courts and alternative prosecution means, and there's nothing in this bill, there's nothing that would disqualify this from being able to be treated as such with a young person or a first-time offender. And what this really gets at, y'all, is that this is a lot, and oftentimes this isn't just a one-time thing. They're rings. There are folks that are consistently engaging in this Porch Piracy Act and taking as much as they can, and if you take enough stuff, you're going to find some valuable stuff. And so we need to have the tools to really be able to try to tackle this issue. So I do ask that you support this bill. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. We're now going on to the chairman's time. By rule, the chairman of the committee will have 20 minutes to speak to the bill. The chair recognizes Chairman Burchett to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will not be 20 minutes. This will be very brief because I think we've had a thorough explanation from both chairs and my friends on the other side of the aisle. This is a bill that we need. We have a serious problem here, and this is something that brings us in parity with the federal government. It's already a felony at the federal level to steal mail. This is not something unheard of. This is a response to the changing times of our world. More people are working at home. More people are staying at home. More people are buying online. So this is a good bill. I would ask that you please favorably vote on this bill. This is a very important measure for how we're going to continue to do commerce throughout the state. So with that, I'm going to yield the well, and I appreciate your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Walensky rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Thank you, Speaker. Is it not true that on lines 40 through 41, when we're talking about this crime of porch piracy, it says, from the porch steps or immediate vicinity of any entrance or exit of a dwelling, and in Georgia, a dwelling is seen as any place that's intended for occupancy, therefore apartments would be included. So therefore, if somebody took a package of the apartment next door without knowing, they'd be in violation of a felony for just grabbing a wrong package from the apartment next door. Thank you, Speaker.
I'm sure the gentleman reads that version. Let's see, we'll do another couple of parliamentary inquiries. What purpose does Chairman Setzler rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
State
Speaker.
your inquiry.
Isn't it true in this circumstance that my friend highlighted that if it was a mistake, there's not criminal intent, and it's a court proves beyond a reasonable doubt that there was actual criminal intent to take the package, and that would not be hard to demonstrate in defense. Isn't it true, Mr.
I'm sure the gentleman believes that to be true. What purpose does Representative Mallow rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr.
State
Speaker.
your inquiry.
Is it not true that under the separate sovereigns rule that an individual could be charged with a federal and state crime if we were to pass this bill?
I'd have to ask a constitutional or federal lawyer, I guess, that question. Okay. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of House Bill 94, the ayes are 101, the nays are 67. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 588.
House Bill 588 by Representative Jaspers to the 11th and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 32 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to highways, bridges, and ferries so as to provide for eligible expenditures for the Georgia Freight Railroad Program of the Georgia Department of Transportation. This bill having been referred to the Committee on Transportation. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes the chairman of the House Transportation Committee, Chairman Jaspers, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I bring you the results of the hard work from the 2020 Georgia Commission on Freight and Logistics. This work will help us take the next step to improve our freight and logistics infrastructure. Speaker Ralston's vision of making sure all of our state prospers is the basis for this commission. Dean Smyrie, past Chairman Kevin Tanner, and many other leaders in transportation were a part of this commission. Section 1 of the substitute would amend the current freight program under GDOT to create a well-defined public benefit definition to allow for investments in infrastructure not owned by the state, which could benefit the state and the public. Sections 2 through 6 updates and clarifies GDOT's State Rail and Transit Authority to make clear they have the authorities, to do P3 public-private partnerships as recommended by the Commission. Section 7 is critically important and represents a logical down payment on more funding for our freight logistics infrastructure. It would dedicate the current state sales tax on diesel fuel purchased by locomotives to fund freight and logistic rail projects by GDOT in our state. And lastly, Section 8, as recommended by the Commission, is to add the DOT Commissioner to the Georgia Ports Authority. We have to invest in our freight logistics infrastructure. This bill is a critical step in that process to continue to keep Georgia a great place to do business. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ask for your favorable consideration on this measure.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I yield well. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? The chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 588 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 588. The ayes are 166. The nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 635.
House Bill 635 by Representative Leverett of the 33rd to be entitled an act to amend Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to courts so as to provide that each judge of the Superior Court, State Court, and Probate Court, and each magistrate shall have the authority to perform any lawful judicial act regardless of where he or she is physically located at the time of such act. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Representative Leverett to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I bring to you House Bill 635, which has been requested by the Council of Superior Court Judges and by the Judicial Council. It has conceptually two basic things that it does. First, it allows a judge to remotely sign an order when that judge is not within the geographic limits of the state of Georgia. Currently, they can sign orders remotely, but they have to be physically present within the state. Of course, the order still can take effect only within the state, but if they happen to be in Nashville or at a judges conference outside the state of Georgia, they can still sign that order remotely and it would have effect. So to use an illustration that's actually happened in my practice before, if my divorce client has already scheduled his subsequent wedding, and he's desperate to get that order signed that week, and the judge is at Amelia Island, we could still get that order signed and have the divorce final so that he doesn't have to reschedule his wedding and upset the future ex-wife that he's going to marry. Call me a cynic, I'm sorry. Finally, it also allows local governing authorities to move the location of court, if needed, to an alternative location. And this, of course, has become a very timely bill during the last year when that's had to happen to move to larger rooms. The governing body, of course, has to take into consideration the convenience of the parties and the witnesses so as not to move it too far, and that it can only be moved to another location within that county or an adjoining county. So I would ask your favorable consideration of this bill, and we'll yield the well for any questions.
What island did you say the judge was at?
Amelia Island, Mr. Speaker.
And is something wrong with that?
No, it's just out of state.
There is that. Do you yield for questions?
I do, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes, this ought to be good, Representative Al Williams to your left for a question.
Will the learned gentleman yield?
I will, sir.
I'm impressed. Your analogies were not good, but you sounded like you knew what you were talking about. Having been way back party to a divorce, I would have gladly carried the papers to Cancun, much less Jekyll.
Well, Mr. Representative, if without this bill, you would have that would have been for naught. I'm sure you had a nice trip, but you couldn't have gotten that order signed because it's out of the state. But this bill, sir, will let you do that. So I look forward to your vote.
Chair recognizes Chairman Hogan in the gallery, straight ahead.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield, sir.
Could you go over one more time what was happening in Amelia Island with this gentleman?
I'm not sure what the judge was doing, Mr. Chairman, but he was out of state, and that was the issue.
Why are you carrying the bill?
Why am I carrying
If you don't
the bill?
know what he was doing.
Well, I know he was out of state where he couldn't sign the order to get my client divorced.
It sounds real interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Walensky over in 341.
Thank you, Speaker. Does the representative yield?
I do, my friend.
Thank you so much. As my 341 COVID seatmate, I'm very grateful that you are carrying this bill, especially Section 2, which I began. So very thank you for this bill, and it's a great bill. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to carry it for you, sir.
Do you continue to yield?
Mr. Chairman, I think, as the gentleman on the Titanic said, I know I asked for ice, but this is ridiculous. I'll yield the well and ask your favorable consideration of House Bill 635. Thank you.
Go find some more bills. I want to hear you do some more bills today. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 635. The ayes are 166, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 497.
House Bill 497 by Representative Administration of the 104th to be entitled an act to amend the official code of Georgia annotated so as to revise, modernize, correct errors or omissions in, and reenact the statutory portion of said code. This bill then referred to the Committee on Code Revision. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
All right. Members, listen up now. This is the most exciting bill we take up every session. Chair recognizes the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Chairman Administration, to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got a lot of attention now on the code revision bill. As you all know, each year we consider the recommendations from Georgia's Code Revision Commission, things to remove, replace in our statute. And I have the honor of carrying the bill this year. We'll be honored to have your favorable consideration. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You have no questions.
I'll yield the well. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 497. The ayes are 165, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 574.
House Bill 574 by Representative Camp, the 131st, to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 411.3 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to licenses for pet dealers and kennel, stable, or animal shelter operators. This bill then referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs. That committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Camp to present the bill.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. We've all seen the tragic stories on the news where animals are abused or neglected in large amounts, typically puppy mills or kennel situations where it's just tragic. Well, House Bill 554 addresses this in some capacity. It creates a companion local government animal trust fund and dedicates no more than $50,000 of collected pet dealer, kennel, stable, animal shelter fees. And the fee shall not exceed $200,000 in any given year. Local governments can apply for reimbursement. Oftentimes, local governments are very overwhelmed when they take in large amounts of animals. For example, the county I live in does not have a humane society per se, so if they were to take in the requisite more than 29 dogs or cats or more than 9 equine, it would be overwhelming to that local community. The Department of Agriculture would allow them to then submit expenses, and they would determine if they were reasonable and appropriate, and they could potentially qualify for reimbursement. The Commission also provides a report of the fund to the House and the Senate Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committees each February 1st, and this fund stands abolished on July 31st, 2031. The bill passed unanimously out of the Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee, and if approved, this bill would be enacted into law when the governor signs it. I do know that. And I do ask for your favorable consideration.
Do you yield for a question?
Yes, sir, I do.
Chair recognizes Chairman Timothy Barr to your left for a question.
Thank you. Does Gentlelady yield?
I do yield.
I apologize. I have not been able to read this bill as of yet. Would you walk me through it one more time? Is this a state trust fund that we're creating, and then the counties or municipalities apply to that? If you could clarify that for me.
Yes, you are correct in the concept. The trust fund is created out of fees that are already paid in by pet dealers, kennels, stables, animal shelters, etc. So instead of the money going into the general fund, it is creating a trust fund. It's a line item which the Department of Agriculture has never had a line item to compensate or pay back these communities for this expenditure. They take in a great deal more than the $50,000 or even the $200,000 annually. So this would not be any further expense to the consumer.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do you yield for a question from the chairman of the committee on which you serve?
Of course.
Chair recognizes Chairman Dickey to your right for a question.
Does the lady yield?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you. I think you just did an excellent explanation of those fees, and I was having other members here, so there are already fees going to the Department of Ag that they're just setting aside these for a period of time to make sure it covers costs. So thank you for bringing this bill. No new fees, just reserving them for when the state needs them.
That is correct. Thank you, Chairman Dickey.
Do you continue to yield?
Yes, sir, I'll yield for one
Chair
more question.
recognizes Representative Hutchinson in the gallery for a question to your right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the lady yield?
Yes, I do.
In your introduction, you said that this bill would address puppy mills. Can you tell me how this would address puppy mills specifically?
Well, it's anytime that there's 29 dogs or cats or more, 9 or more equine taken in at one point in time. Typically, when you get in a large situation like that, it's not the one person who has, a dog or a cat and they have a litter and all of a sudden they're overwhelmed. This is typically a situation where it's a hoarding, a puppy mill. It's a situation where things have just gotten out of control, and oftentimes these animals are in horrific health, and they need veterinary care, they need rehabilitation, they need fostering, and then they need rehoming. So this does fall into the puppy mills. It's not addressing the puppy mills per se, but it's addressing the effects of what we're having to deal with because of them.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 574. The ayes are 164. The nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Resolution 130.
House Resolution 130 by Representative McDonald, the 26th, and others. A resolution ratifying the action of the Board of Community Affairs approving the transfer of Forsyth County from the Georgia Mountain Regional Commission to the Atlanta Regional Commission. This bill having referred to the Committee on Governmental Affairs. That committee recommends that this resolution be adopted.
Chair recognizes Representative McDonald to present the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Resolution 130 is a ratification of a vote that was taken back in November of 2020 by the Department of Community Affairs to move Forsyth County from the Georgia Mountain Region to the Atlanta Regional Commission. It also was voted on by our Forsyth County Commission unanimously by a 5-0 vote, and also our delegation in Forsyth County, the entire delegation is in support of this move. So before I yield the well, I want to, Mr. Speaker, I have called a freshman class caucus, and all these people have been calling you chairman today. I'm going to let them know you are the Speaker of the House, not the chairman. So I am going to be fixing that with a freshman caucus. I yield for questions.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I guess.
I'm going to yield the well.
You have questions if you care to yield. It's up to you.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Watson to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, or thank you, Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
I've had a long day. Sorry about that.
He's going to be part of the meeting too, sir.
Just out of curiosity.
So have I, Representative Watson.
I know you have, Mr. Speaker. You have a long 40 days. The friendly question is, why does Forsyth County want to move from the Mountain Regional Commission to the Atlanta Regional Commission? What was the reason and purpose behind that?
Twofold. I learned a lot when I walked into my office and I saw two maps that were in the new domicile where I was taking residence up in 612, and it had a map of everybody's picture in here around the state. But on the first map I saw, I didn't see Forsyth County. Then I looked to the left, I saw another map of just the metro area, and it had all our Forsyth County delegation connected to that. I think Forsyth County has changed so much that what is going on for transportation issues is more aligned to what's going on in the metro area than what's going on north of the end of 400.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Martin to your left for a question.
Gentleman, yield for a question?
Yes, sir.
This is a bit of a serious question. You're moving from the one regional development center into the ARC in Atlanta. Is it true that's what this resolution would do?
Yes, sir.
Are you sure that Forsyth County knows all they're getting into? And I mean that seriously. There are multiple things that go on in the Atlanta Development Center. And have we taken care of all that? The gentleman feels comfortable that's been taken care of in this resolution.
Well,
that's a serious question.
Yeah, I get it. To answer your question, when I ran for this office, something I promised myself is that I would not micromanage county government. And with a 5-0 vote of my county commission, and they've been working on this with DCA, my job is to take with my commission and these local resolutions to come down here and do their business.
Chair recognizes Chairman Tarvin to your right for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman yield?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're doing pretty good there, but you said you looked at that map and something about it being connected to the mountain people. Before I vote now, was there any problem with you personally about being connected to the mountain people, or is that just...
I love me some mountain people, sir. I'm from the country.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Yes,
comment.
sir. I'm going to yield the well, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this resolution now be adopted? All those in favor of the adoption of the resolution will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. What purpose does Chairman Werkheiser rise?
Parliamentary
State your inquiry.
To the chair. As long as we're educating freshmen, just two in the last two bills, you are the chair, correct?
I'm lots of things, you know, and some of them I can't even say in mixed company. I've been called.
Well, you often say the chair does so and so, and furthermore, most bills, unless signified in the bill, do not take place upon signature of the governor. They take place July 1st, unless the bill so states.
That's a general statement, except this is a resolution. Okay, have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the adoption of House Resolution 130, the ayes are 163, the nays are 0. This resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 32.
House Bill 32 by Representative Belton of the 112th and others, to be entitled an act to amend Part 9 of Article 60, Chapter 2, entitled 20 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to grants for educational programs so as to establish a teacher recruitment and retention program for refundable income tax credit for teachers. This bill having referred to the Committee on Ways and Means, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Chair recognizes Chairman Belton to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Normally, I'm 40,000 feet above the hair when I have these bills come up, but I try to do this one myself, sir. Thank you very much. This is a bill you've seen before.
Can I stop you right there a minute?
Yes.
When you're flying a plane at 40,000 feet, you're thinking about a bill.
That's all I'm thinking about, sir. I just matched that
Am
green.
Am I the only one that's concerned about that?
All I do is mash that green go button, and the airplane just goes all by itself.
Gentlemen may proceed.
This idea actually started with Representative Amy Carter a couple of years ago when she did a very large group of teachers together and had recommendations of what they wanted to see. I want to thank Representative Marcus Wiedauer, Representative Jasmine Clark, Representative Angelica Kausha, and Madam Pro Tem for perfecting this bill. It's been through about 14 drafts. Basically, it's a pilot program that will allow 1,000 teachers, if they volunteer to go to a very rural school or a school of the lowest performing 5% school, they get a $3,000 tax credit for 5 years. It's a $3 million ask. There's 43 states to do something like this. There's about 45 different studies that show that this is very effective, and there is a sunset. And I will yield for questions, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Heath Clark to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
For my friend.
You mentioned hitting a green button in the airplane to make it go. Is that true?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Would you also agree that you make a lot more money hitting that green button than you do the green buttons here?
That would be about 100 times more.
Got a little bill coming. Do you further yield?
Yes, sir. For one more, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Chokas to your left for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you said, you were a pilot flying at 40,000 feet.
Yes, sir.
And this is a pilot program.
I like that idea.
Okay. Well, don't you think you need to recuse yourself from this legislation?
I should. If you want me to, sir, I will. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Gentleman yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Erica Thomas rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that my husband is a pilot and he started off pilot school in a rural county that only had about 100 pilots, and I support this measure to support pilots all over the state of Georgia, especially in rural counties?
If the lady so states. What purpose does Representative Bentley rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true, Mr. Speaker, that Representative Heath Clark and I participated in a event hosted by Middle Georgia State University where they flew us from Macon, Georgia down to Eastman, Georgia in a very small plane? And we made it back safely. Is that not true, Mr. Speaker?
And he got on.
Yes, sir. He got on with me.
Who flew the plane?
A young man that looked like he was 12 years old.
Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 32. The ayes are 165. The nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 553.
House Bill 553 by Representative Gunner of the 8th and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 13 and Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to administrative procedure so as to provide for participation in hearings by electronic communications. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Gunter to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill does two things. It allows administrative law judges to conduct hearings by electronic communication. And the second thing it does is it allows them or requires that anyone filing documents in those courts would do it by e-filing. I checked with the courts and they have that system in place, so it won't be any additional cost to the state. I'll take any questions.
You have a question. Chair recognizes Representative Al Williams to your left for a question.
Will the gentleman yield?
I yield, sir.
I've been keeping a little scorecard, and I'm concerned about how the judges made it before you got here.
Well, we met all kinds of ways.
Oh, no, it's good to have you. I'm looking forward to your next judicial bill.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got another coming.
Do you further yield?
Or if there's another question, yes.
There is.
I'll take it.
Chair recognizes Chairman Martin to your left for a question.
Isn't it true, gentlemen yield for a question?
I yield.
Isn't it true, if I might direct this to the Speaker of the Chair, isn't it true, Mr. Speaker, that we await every year anxiously on the what we refer to as the governor's package for legislation that our governor is interested in here in this House?
I believe that to be true.
Isn't it true now, Mr. Speaker, with the representative here, that we will now come back next year if we're all blessed to make it to then in 2022, and we'll be waiting on Representative Gunner's package.
Well, we're checking right now to see what the record is for a first session freshman in terms of number of bills passed.
We may need to get him a special committee. Isn't that true, Mr. Speaker?
It could be. Chair recognizes Representative Reeves to your left for a question.
The gentleman yield.
I yield.
Is the gentleman aware that the modern record for the most bills passed by a freshman is 5, that I hold that record? Are you aware of that?
I'm aware that you're not the only one that holds that record.
I don't want you to pass any more bills, please. Thank you.
Mary Margaret Oliver, I think, has that record as well. I yield the will.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 553. The ayes are 166, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 480.
House Bill 480 by Representative Washburn of the 141st to be titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 8 of Chapter 14 of Title 44 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to mechanics and materialmen's liens so as to provide for the creation, declaration, amendment, notice, and priority of liens for labor, services, or materials. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary, that committee recommends that this bill do pass.
Chair recognizes Representative Washburn to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I rise to present House Bill 480, which adds the registered interior designers to the Georgia lien law. This bill is needed to level the playing field and ensure that these good folks can have the same way to protect themselves that architects and engineers already possess. As it stands now, registered interior designers are the only registered design professionals that are not covered by the lien law. And right now, the only way that a registered interior designer can collect money owed to them is to file a lawsuit, which obviously takes a lot of time and is very expensive and delays the process very much. So this is just a situation of fairness, that they deserve the right to be able to file a lien to protect themselves financially. Currently, 23 states contain lien law that allows this. This vocation or profession, or however we would refer to it, is growing in Georgia. So there are many, many more of those, and it is just something out of a sense of fairness. One of our House members told me a story when this bill was in committee that one of his constituents was owed $72,000. And when she heard about this bill, she asked him if it could be retroactive, which I don't think is possible, of course. Anyway, I will yield for questions, Mr. Speaker.
Chair are you finished? Chair you yield for questions?
Yes, I do, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Martin to your left for a question.
Representative, the serious question about the matter. We're adding these folks, and I'm unfamiliar with this area of the law. I see them going in paragraph 10. That doesn't put them in, does that create an order, I guess? I mean, are they the last people in line? Does this put them in front of anyone else? I just wonder how that works. If you could help me out with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's an excellent question. Actually, I had it in my notes, and I did not state that. The bill does not change the operation of the lien law in any way. It would not affect any other people who have rights to place liens now. It just adds these people.
Do you further yield?
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Moore to your left in the gallery.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I will yield for my friend.
Thank you. Isn't it true that you and I had a robust discussion about this bill and the effects it might have, including who might be for it, who might be against it, and ultimately I decided to co-sponsor this bill with you?
That is true, and I appreciated that co-sponsorship very much.
Thank you. Does the gentleman further yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Isn't it true that as an attorney who represents members of the arts and entertainment community, including interior designers, that this provides equity to that community, which also provides enormous benefit and value to real estate?
Yes, ma'am, that is true, and thank you for that question.
Thank you for bringing this bill.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I respectfully request your favorable consideration of this bill.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the passage of House Bill 480. The ayes are 164, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. House Bill 328 will be postponed until the next legislative day. What purpose does Representative Becky Evans rise?
To make a motion,
State your motion.
I move that the rules be suspended so that a bill can be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Clerk will read the caption.
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Evans, the 83rd, to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 3, Chapter 5 of Title 50, the official code of Georgia and Taylor relating to general authority, duties, and procedure relative to state purchasing.
On the lady's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow a bill to be read for the first time and assigned to committee, is there objection? Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Governmental Affairs. What purpose does Chairman Dempsey rise?
To make a motion, Mr. Speaker.
State your motion.
I move that the rules be temporarily suspended so that a bill may be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Clerk will read the caption.
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Dempsey, the 13th, and others, to be entitled an act to amend Title 37 of Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 50 and Chapter 16 of Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to mental health and the general provisions relative to the Department of Community Affairs.
On the lady's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow a bill to be read for the first time and assigned to committee, is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Public Safety and Homeland Security. What purpose does the Majority Caucus whip rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the rules of the House be temporarily suspended so a bill can be read for the first time and assigned to committee.
Clerk will read the caption.
Unnumbered House Bill by Representative Kelly, the 16th, be titled an act to amend Article 8 of Chapter 11 of Title 9 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to provisional and final remedies and special proceedings so as to revise and provide for new requirements of the Georgia Civil Practice Act.
On Representative Kelly's motion that the rules of this House be temporarily suspended to allow a bill to be read for the first time and assigned to committee, is there objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. What purpose does Chairman Tarvin rise?
Make a motion.
State your motion.
Yes, sir. I make a motion that House Resolution 270 be moved from Agriculture and Consumer Affairs to Transportation Committee. Both chairs are in agreement.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Resolution 270 by Representative Tarvin of the 2nd and others, a resolution dedicating the Georgia Grown Trail 27.
On the gentleman's motion that House Resolution 270 be moved from the Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee to the Transportation Committee, is there objection? Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is so ordered. Going back to Representative Kelly's bill, Chair failed to assign it to committee. It will be assigned to the Special Committee on Access to the Civil Justice System. Okay. We have a reminder. You got an email, I think, earlier today that COVID testing will be tomorrow because it's Thursday, even though we're not in session, from 7 a.m. until 11 a.m. at the usual station. You had all the details in that, and so I just wanted to remind you of that. And there's also instructions in there if you are not going to be here tomorrow. So please give that attention, and we'll try to get yet another reminder out later today. We got a birthday tomorrow, even though we're not going to be in session. Please help me wish a happy birthday to Representative Debbie Buckner. Representative Buckner. Chair recognizes Chairman England for an announcement. If you signed up for an announcement, please make your way to the front of the chamber. Please make your way to the front of the chamber. The gentleman may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. Just a reminder, tomorrow morning, starting at 7:30, with the General Government Subcommittee, we will be starting the subcommittee meetings at 7:30 with General Government, moving on to higher education, public safety, education, human resources, transportation, health, and economic development on 15-minute increments. And then we will roll right into full committee at 9:30. Be watching your email inboxes right at 9:30 as the subcommittees wrap up their work. The full budget document will be loaded into your email inboxes if you choose to be a virtual attendee. Copies will be available at 341. Again, limited seating in there, so we are going to have to do it as a hybrid model, but you will get those documents right at 9:30 in your email inbox. Be watching for an email from myself or from Miss Ashley Newton, my admin, and those documents will be attached. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Chokus for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Small Business Development Committee, we will be having a full committee meeting tomorrow at 11:30 in 506 CLOB. 506 CLOB, 11:30. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Burchett for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The full committee, Judiciary Non-Civil, will meet in room 132 upon adjournment. We got a few measures to consider. I appreciate everyone to be there. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Mitchell for an announcement.
The Minority Caucus will have a very brief meeting in 216 at 5 p.m. and dinner will be served. That's 216 at 5 p.m. Thanks so much.
Chair recognizes Representative McLean for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just want to remind everybody that Working Family Caucus will be meeting tomorrow at 12 o'clock, and you can pick up your lunches for members in room 310 CLOB. That's 310 CLOB tomorrow if you're here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Collins for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Public Safety Homeland Security Committee will meet, the subcommittee will meet in 406 immediately upon adjournment. 406 Subcommittee A, Public Safety and Homeland Security. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Ron Stevens for an announcement.
Thank you, Speaker. Members of the Economic Development and Tourism Committee will meet tomorrow at 12 noon and 3:41. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Lynn Smith for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an announcement to the full Committee of House Natural Resource and Environment. We will not, I repeat, we will not be meeting tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman F. Stration for an announcement.
Thank you, Speaker. The House Judiciary Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in room 132. 9 a.m. in room 132 tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Werkheiser for an announcement.
Thank you, Speaker. The Industry and Labor is going to meet tomorrow at 10 o'clock. It is going to be at a different room than we're usually at. It's going to be at CLOB 406, 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Martin for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House Higher Education Committee will meet in room 341 tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We have a number of measures we need to take action on. 1 o'clock, 341. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That completes our announcements. The chair recognizes the Majority Leader of the House for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Testing in the morning, Mr. Speaker, 7 until 11. Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand adjourned until 9:30 Friday, March the 5th, 2021.
The Majority Leader has moved that this House stand adjourned until Friday, March 5th, at 9:30 a.m. 9:30 a.m. All those in favor of the motion will say aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it. This House will be adjourned until Friday at 9:30 a.m.